Algebra 1, Lesson 102, Absolute Value Inequalities. Let's fix our focus. Okay. So absolute value inequalities are just graphing on a number line problems where the x value or the unknown value is inside a set of absolute value brackets. So we'll go over a few different examples. We'll use the same number every time. I'm just going to go with 3. So the first option we have is that the absolute value of x will be less than 3. What that means is when we graph it, since it's an absolute value, then even if we put a negative number in here, it's going to become a positive. So we have to find all the positive numbers that are less than 3. What's going on with the setup here? There we go. All right, so the absolute value of every number, positive and negative, that's less than 3. So when we graph this, we're going to go ahead and go to 3, and then we're also going to go to negative 3. Right? And then since it's not equal to, those are going to be open dots at each of those, and we're going to connect them in the middle. All right? So the graph of an absolute value that's less than a number is a conjunction. It connects in the middle. Now what if we had it greater than? What if the absolute value of x was greater than 3? Well, same thing. We would just create our number line, go to positive 3 and negative 3. However, instead of doing the values lower than 3 or in between the two numbers, we would be making a disjunction where we do all the numbers that are above or less than, or going in opposite directions like so. And again, open dots because it's not equal to. All right, so this is the first major rule of absolute value inequalities. There's one other rule that we have to remember, which is what if we have an absolute value set to a negative number. So this one can be a little confusing because negative numbers kind of throw it off. So what if we had the absolute value of x is, we'll go less than negative 3. So what this does is we still have a number line. However, since it's a less than negative 3, we're still bound to the, since it's negative 3, no absolute value can be a negative number or and hence less than negative 3, so this one is not defined. Or undefined. Because if you look, whatever number we plug into this, even if we were to plug a negative 2 in here, it would then become positive 2, which would then be greater than negative 3. There's no way you're going to get a negative absolute value. So that's the problem with absolute values to negative numbers. If they're less than, then they're not defined. Now what if we have an absolute value to a negative number, but it's greater than? So x is greater than negative 3. Okay, well we have the exact opposite thing, where this one could be no values on the number line. This one is actually just going to be all of them. All right. So this includes the entire number line, and the reason why is because even if we go to 0, if we plug 0 into this number, the absolute value of 0 would be 0, and 0 would be greater than negative 3. We can even go to 1. The absolute value of 1 is greater than negative 3. The absolute value of negative 1 is greater than negative 3. So there's no possible way to get below 0, which means that if you have an absolute value that's greater than a negative number, then the answer is just going to be all reals, or all real numbers. All right, so those are the 4 different tricks to graphing inequalities, and we have to remember those rules when we're faced with inequality equations like the following. If we have negative absolute value of x minus 9 is greater than negative 11. So we can't graph this immediately because it needs to be solved. So we'll go ahead and solve the inequality. We'll start by adding 9 to each side. That gives me negative absolute value of x is greater than negative 2. Okay, and then from here, we got to get rid of the negative because we can't have a negative x value. So we multiply each side by negative 1, or we could divide each side by negative 1. Divide by negative 1. Negatives cancel. And we're just left with absolute value of x is greater than positive 2. So to graph this, we draw our number line. we go to +2, we go to -2, and then remember, if it's greater than, it's going to form a disjunction, and it's not equal to, so open circles, and they go away from each other. That's it for this lesson. If you guys have any questions, let me know on Moodle, and I will see you in class.